also has some specific training. I think the problem with that, though, is that there's not enough time involved.
Court, and they have to tell you that you have those rights, and you have to affirmatively acknowledge that you understand those rights before they can then go ahead and question you. What I tell people when they ask me, how do you represent these bad people, is they're not bad people. They're good people who just make mistakes.
Thank you for coming out in the rain and half sleep. I definitely appreciate that. My name is Brandon Johnson. I'm the Executive Director of CORE. Again, this Know Your Rights workshop is to really go over the rights that you have as citizens and the rights that also law enforcement has. Before I get into the rest of that, I want to introduce Danielle Johnson, the Board Vice Chair. She's also my wife. Proud to be the boss in both places. This is Mr. Lamont Anderson. He's the Board Chair. Mr. Robert Moody is our Board Secretary. Mr. Brad Thomason is right there. He is our Board Treasurer. And these are our guests today. I will introduce them momentarily. Real quick, if you didn't sign that sign-in sheet back there before you leave, please do it. If you want a copy of our CORE newsletter, which will have the date of the next Know Your Rights workshop. We plan to do one every month for the next 3 months after this one. Please put an X next to that, put your email address and your name. We'll get that information to you. Hey, come out to that. So he can introduce them. But I know Mr. Burrell. He is a former WPD officer, also a current officer in Texas. And unfortunately, he played for Northwest. I told him I'd get it. Odell there too. But this is Officer Burrell. I appreciate him driving from Texas to be here.
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? All right. Thank you so much for coming out. We really appreciate it. I'm going to give a brief introduction, then I'll let these two introduce themselves, and emphasis on brief. My name is Robert Moody. I was born in Montgomery, Alabama, so I'm War Eagle all day long. I grew up in a small town out in southwest Kansas, Protection, Kansas. That's where I went to junior high and high school at. And I've been living in Wichita since 95 or 96, so Wichita's home for me now. Been in the legal community since about 98, started as a runner, then worked as a legal assistant, and then worked at the federal courthouse for some years, and then I decided to go to law school. I just recently graduated from Washington Law. I am currently an associate attorney over the Martin Pringle Law Firm, where I do general litigation, do criminal defense, traffic stuff, and also oil and gas work. So, and I'll turn it over. This is Steve Gradert.
Well, you want some time for Chris.
Okay. Yeah, let me let Chris go first.
I'm Chris Garcia. I grew up in Wichita. I was here pretty much all my life. I went to my undergraduate down at Trinity in San Antonio. I then got interested in law school, came up to KU, went to law school up there. Got out in '95, worked for the same judge that Robert Moody worked for over at the federal courthouse for 2 years. That was my first experience as a lawyer. Got really interested in criminal law there because I got to see people like Steve Gradert, who is an excellent attorney, do excellent work in the courtroom. Became interested in criminal, thought I still wanted to do civil and make money. I did that for about a year, got fired, couldn't work for anybody, and now so since '97, I've been doing full-time criminal defense. I've 3.5 years as a Sedgwick County public defender, where I, represented probably hundreds and hundreds of people. And they still come up and actually thank me, which I'm really appreciative of, because public defenders sometimes get a bad rap, and we'll talk about that. But they're some of the best lawyers out there, in my opinion. Beyond that, I went private in 2001, and I've been essentially a criminal defense lawyer since 2001. The last 2 years, I've been the defense lawyer for Sedgwick County Drug Court, which is definitely a full-time job, even though they call it part-time. I have 100 clients. All of them are felons who are this close to KDOC. The drug court hopefully will save them from going to KDOC. That's our hope. It's a collaborative court. It's a little bit different than the fighting we're going to talk about today. So that's another thing I can talk about. I'll have business cards if any of you have addict relatives or friends that you want to talk to me about drug court and what the implications might be. I'm here for you. Thanks.
Well, thanks for having us here today. My name's Steve Gradert. I'm an assistant federal public defender, and I've been a public defender my entire legal career, so I've never taken a fee for a case. So I don't know what it's like to make money like these guys do. One of these days I might go out and make some real money, but I've really enjoyed my career as a public defender. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up here in Wichita. I born at Wesley Hospital in 1955, if you want to know how old I am, and went to Murdoch Elementary School, which they tore down, and I went to Robinson, which is still there, but I went to Southeast and graduated from Southeast, and I guess they're going to do something with that since I've been there too. I guess I wasn't good enough for any of these people to keep a school going, but anyway, so I know a lot of people in the community. I've lived here all my life. I lived on the east side of town. I've lived on the west side of town. I've made a lot of friends and hopefully not too many enemies. But my dad was a lawyer, and in fact my dad started his career in the federal courthouse in 1958 as a law clerk for one of the federal judges, and then my dad became a prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office. And a lot of people wonder where I went wrong or where my dad went wrong, because I've been defending people all of my life, and my dad prosecuted people for a while. But Dad's done both sides. He's way smarter than I am, and I ended up becoming a defense lawyer, mostly because when I went to law school up at Washburn, well, I went to Wichita State University, go Shockers, and I went to Washburn University where my dad had gone, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a medical malpractice lawyer and make lots of money, and but I didn't really know anything about it. And then the reality hit of trying to find a job when I got out of law school, and I didn't have one, maybe because I didn't have very good grades. But I tell everybody I graduated magna cum laude. But I came to Wichita, and Richard Ney, who was the state public defender here in Sedgwick County for a long time, was kind enough to give me a chance. And Richard was, well, my father, a man asked me earlier if my father was a mentor. My father was a district court judge for about 30 years, and Dad was a mentor, but I didn't really know what he was doing. And, you know, I didn't know quite what to think about judges anyway. They judge people, and I try not to judge people. But I got that job in the public defender's office, and Richard Ney became my mentor. And one of the things Richard Ney taught me, and if any of you know who Richard Ney is, he's a great man. He's a great lawyer. Spend time with them, care about them, because what I tell people when they ask me, how do you represent these bad people, is they're not bad people. They're good people who just make mistakes sometimes, and or have bad judgment. And so I've enjoyed doing it. I did it with Richard for a couple of years in the state public defender system, and then I decided I could get a little bit more money by going to the federal system, and that's where I've been the last 25 years. The federal system is a harsh system, and I'm hoping to be able to answer some questions to you about what happens to you when you get in federal trouble. But a lot of the things that we're dealing with in terms of like traffic stops and things like that, and dealing with police, are common to both the state and the federal government, since we are all one big United States, and we work under the principles of the United States Constitution. I did want to tell you that I don't do this very often. Most of my career, I've just been dedicated to defending the individuals that I represent, and I don't get involved in a lot of community work. I did attend this last year the Civil Rights Symposium. I've seen some faces here that were there, Mary Dean, what I felt like when I was at that symposium, and it was the first time I'd really been to a community thing like that, was that there were a lot of people that really weren't getting answers to their questions. They were hearing things, and there was a study about racial profiling and those kinds of things, but nobody was getting any real answers. And I'm not sure we're going to be able to give you any answers, but we're going to try to help you out and help you understand some things here today.
The moderator is going to sit.
Oh, okay.
Okay. You know, I'm not afraid of this guy. No, actually, I love attorneys. A lot of my help actually comes from attorneys. I'll ask questions like I encourage everybody to do. But I started my career in law enforcement in 2006 down in Wichita Police Department. I left in 2007. I went into customer service. And then I had an opportunity to move to Texas and get back into law enforcement, help out a little bit for him. And so since 2012, I've actually been in Texas doing cop thing. I know this has been in the works for quite a while. I've been talking to Randy actually on a lot of controversial topics. We've had a lot of great discussion. And the thing I love most is that he understands that debate is not about being right. It's about having a conversation and involving the thought process. Just like these guys, my hope is to answer some questions. I know I'm being brutally honest. If you don't want to know, don't ask. I know we have some young people, so I encourage them to ask questions too, if they have it. Right. Other than that, though, I mean, I appreciate the opportunity as always, and let's get started.
Our moderator for today is Mr. Lamont Anderson. He's our board chair. So we'll get started, but I want to thank Mr. Ashwin. He's a student at WSU. He's going to be taking pictures and video today, and he's volunteering, so we definitely appreciate that. Turn it over to Mr. Anderson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Very briefly, I think one of the best aspects about a good moderator is one that you don't see and don't hear very often. Obviously, I don't have expertise that these gentlemen will give to you today, so my conversation voice should be very limited. Certainly, I just want everyone to keep in mind that certainly we know with some of the events that have happened here.
That familiar refrain, hey, I know my rights. You know, somebody gets stopped by a cop or something, and, you know, that's usually one of the first things they say, or, you know, and we want to make sure that you do know and understand what your actual rights are, where these rights come from, what they're based on, and that's kind of the basis of our discussion today. So,
Sure, I'll let, you know, and I'm going to stand up when I talk every once in a while, guys, so you in the back can see me, but, and hopefully everybody can hear us, but when Robert talked about knowing your rights, you know, one of the first things that guys and gals say to me when they come in sometimes is, God, the cops didn't read me my rights. They didn't read me my rights. And, you know, you've all seen that on TV and everything, so you think they've got to do it. Well, there's nothing in the law that says that they have to read you your rights when they arrest you. Correct me if I misstate anything. But the bottom line is that the rights that you have, you do have rights. You have the right not to consent to a search. That's in the Fourth Amendment. You have the right to assert to remain silent. And always remember that one. I tell all my clients, don't talk to the cops, don't talk to anybody until you see your lawyer. And you have the right to a lawyer. And once you assert those rights, like your right to remain silent or your right to a lawyer, you do not have to talk to them, and they should quit questioning you, quite frankly, at that point in time. And I think most officers will honor that. But if they arrest you and they put you in the back of the car and you're back in there saying, God, I wish I hadn't killed that guy, or I wish I hadn't and that recording is on in that car, they're going to use that statement against you because that was a voluntary statement. It wasn't something that was given during an interrogation. And that's where the rights kick in. You guys correct me if I ever misstate anything in the law, because the law isn't always my best thing anyway. But it gets in the way of people's rights and, you know, things like that. But you know, if they are going to interrogate you, then they should read you your rights, and that's the Miranda rights from the famous decision of Miranda by the Supreme Court, and they have to tell you that you have those rights, and you have to affirmatively acknowledge that you understand those rights before they can then go ahead and question you. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. So your rights for a speedy trial. A lot of times I have individuals call me because they don't have the money to bond out, and the first time they see their public defender is on the day of their court hearing. So what can people do to get to see their public defender a little earlier? Do you have any suggestions?
Well, in the federal court, we are required to appear at their first appearance before the judge. So you get to see us right away, but we're a little different breed than the state public defender system. The state public defender system, keep in mind they're dealing with, you know, hundreds and hundreds more people than we do in the federal system. They have a lot more lawyers. The way they used to do it in my day, and Chris can probably tell you, because he was in the state public defender's office quite a bit after I was, a lot of the time people make their initial appearance in court, and they're told that, you know, if they ask for a court-appointed lawyer, they're going to get the public defender. And then they go back in, they have a bond set, and if they don't make bond, they remain in there, and they wait until their lawyer comes to see them. And there's not a whole lot that they can do to get that lawyer there unless they have a family member that can call up the public defender. And I encourage you to do that. Call the lawyer and bug them and say, hey, get over there and see my loved one, you know. Richard Ney had a rule for us that we needed to see our clients within 24 hours of the appointment. So I was at the jail, and I still kind of adhere to that today. We try to see our clients as quickly as we possibly can. It's not as easy for me because they keep my clients in Butler County and in Harvey County, and so we have to drive all the way out there to see them, and it's a little difficult. But I think maintaining client contact for a lawyer is the most important thing you can do. And also contact with the family to kind of let them know what's going on too. Speedy trial, of course, is something if you don't mind, I would like to talk about, because speedy trial is a constitutional right. But in all honesty, in many instances, it's a right that I think is kind of screwed up, because when the prosecution has a case, and the police bring a case, or the FBI, or the DEA, or whoever, the Secret Service, whoever I'm dealing with, when they bring a case, they've pretty well investigated it. They've got their reports written, they've got their facts all straight, they know what happened, everything's been done. And then we get the case, and they say, okay, I want my speedy trial. Well, that's not really very fair, because the lawyer and the person and the investigators are not really ready to go. And in the federal system, the Speedy Trial Act is really fast, and our judges really cram it down our throat. We call it a rocket docket sometimes, and it's really too fast. I mean, they'll investigate a case for 2 or 3 years, and then we get the case, and everybody says, hey, I want my speedy trial. Well, you're better off sitting in jail for a few months than you are for the next 30 years by rushing into a trial that you're not ready for. So as you talk about speedy trial, keep that in mind, because a lot of people, think that it's the lawyer just delaying, and there may be some of that sometimes. Our state court system is kind of backed up, and I'm shocked and appalled sometimes when I hear about people being in the system over there for 2 or 3 years at a time, waiting for a trial, or even a year, because our cases are usually done from start to finish in about 6 or 7 months. And that's not a good thing either, though, always, because you don't want to rush to justice either.
Thank you, Senator. Great question. We're going to kind of
I told Robert we could take care of this 3 hours easy.
And right now we're just going to transition to the traffic stops and pedestrian stops, because usually most frequent encounter with law enforcement is when you get stopped, you're driving a car, you get pulled over, you know, for whatever reason, or sometimes you might be, you know, just minding your business, walking down the street, and all of a sudden law enforcement might come up to you. And so we want to talk about, you know, what to do, you know, in those types of situations. So I'll let Chris go ahead and kind of segue into that.
How many of you have pedestrian encounters? Just looking for a hand. Just walking around, people come up to you, cops come up to you. Give me an example out there, somebody. How about you?
Okay, I got one.
Okay.
Well, I've had 3 people contact me within the last 6 months where they were walking down the street where there's no sidewalks, and they were stopped, and this occurs like on 21st in Minnesota, 21st and Hyatt, in that area by 21st and I-35, and so it's a real narrow street, no sidewalks, and they were stopped and told that they were walking on the wrong direction. They needed to, and I'm not clear myself, should they be walking towards ongoing traffic or not, but then they are told that they need to figure out the space between the curb and where it's city property, and they can walk on the grass, but we know people don't want you walking on the grass, so then they're told that they can walk in that little a cubby hole, I'm gonna call it, the drain part on the curb. So what are their rights? And to, you know, even if it's 10 p.m., 12 midnight, there are some areas where you can walk your dog and just walk, and you don't have that problem. So that's 3 examples.
Let me start with this. Pretextual stops. That used to be a bad word, right? I mean, pretext, there's a pretext for this stop, meaning it's a fake reason for the stop.
Right.
That used to be a no-no in the law. Now it's okay. The Supreme Court says it's okay to pretextually stop someone. So now, I'll read police reports from a lot of WPD officers. Well, they'll say, I was watching this known drug house, and I don't know who by known they mean who knows this, but apparently the officer does. And so-and-so left the drug house in a car. I followed with the idea of making a pretextual stop. They will say it now right out loud because it's legal. Just like it's legal for an officer to lie to you and not tell the truth. So the problem is now that the reality of the situation, it used to be that as criminal defense lawyers we could go, well, gosh darn it, you can assert your Fourth Amendment rights, you can assert your right to silence an attorney and walk away from the encounter. And I still tell people that the 2 questions with them are, am I under arrest? Am I free to go? Or am I being detained? Am I free to go? And that is a good way to kind of bring things to a head. Now, some officers might take offense at that, so just be as polite as possible all the time if you can. Remember, this is their job to some extent, to all extents, but there may be something going on in the background we're just not aware of when that citizen police encounter is going on. We don't know who's running away from them 4 blocks away that they might be looking for. So but what I tell people is, you know, to keep repeating that mantra, am I under arrest, am I free to go? Because when you're not free to go, then you're under arrest, and any question that's asked at that point, it kicks in your Miranda rights, what Steve was discussing. So that might not be a good answer to what you're seeing. I have not heard of that kind of a stop yet. That's pretty ridiculous. What I'm seeing right now is a rash of, you went over the line, okay, stoplight, there's a line on the ground, if you rolled over it by 12 inches, I'm pulling you over.
Yeah.
That's happening a lot right now. I've been seeing a lot of those stops. I've been seeing dirty license tag stops. So go out there, clean your license tag off. Make sure it's clean. I don't know what to tell you on these stops other than to keep repeating that refrain if you want to go on your way. Now, Steve and I were discussing this the other day. When you get in a car stop situation and an officer says, I need you to get out of the car, you have to get out of the car. Unfortunately, that is something that we've discussed that appears to be the case law, that you have to get out of that car and deal with the officer.
And here's what happens sometimes. I mean, you know, somebody get pulled over for a traffic ticket, and you know, you're looking at the officer and you're like, really, I got to get out of the car? And he's like, yeah, you need to get out of the car. You're like, oh, come on, why? Well, then the next thing you know, he's going to say, well, you were obstructing. You were obstructing. And then they're going to open the door and pull you out of the car, and you're basically under arrest at that point in time, and then a lot of things can flow from that. So you really do have to be cooperative.
And if you think of probable cause and reasonable suspicion, these are standards. Probable cause is like the reasonable doubt, which is your trial right. That's way up here. But probable cause is way down here. That's the standard they use to arrest you. Below that is reasonable suspicion, which means just about anything when it comes down to it. Think of that as a thermometer going up and down, or if you want your burner on your stove. Because as that encounter is a dynamic encounter you're having with the police. It doesn't
Scenario like that, most people, if an officer comes up and says to you, hey, what are you doing? I mean, you don't feel free to leave at that point. I mean, most people think it's an authority figure. He's sitting there asking you questions. And at that point, the proper response should be, you know, if he asks, hey, can I do this? The answer should be no. I mean, if he's asking you the question, that means he doesn't have the authority to do it, or he'd be doing it anyway. So, but most people don't feel that they have the ability to just walk away from something like that. If an officer comes up to me in his full uniform and he's got his gun and he's got everything with him, you know, you have the right to tell him, no, you know, I don't want to answer any questions, but then what's going to happen next? And so that's kind of, you know, where all this stuff is, you know, going with it. It's like, okay, now what happens? So, I mean, what do you do in that situation? But, I mean, the rule of thumb is that they have to ask you something, because if they're going to arrest you, they're not going to ask you, can I arrest you? You know, they just arrest you. But because consent takes away all your rights. I mean, once you say, yes, you can do this, then your rights are gone. Your Fourth Amendment right, your Fifth Amendment right, all those rights, you can voluntarily waive those rights, and that's what the consent is. And that's normally what the officers are going for all the time anyways. Once you consent to something, you know, you just gave them, you just waived all your rights voluntarily.
How are cops trained to deal with people who assert their rights? How were you taught to deal with that? I'm not going to answer any questions, officer.
I've been in long enough to know, one, just like you said, I mean, if I'm asking you, I don't have it. So if you say no and you want to walk away, I mean, I've been in long enough to say, you say have a good day. You know, I'll catch you later if I think you're doing something.
Are you guys specifically trained to deal with that situation?
I agree. I think there's a lot of improvement for law enforcement to undertake. To say specifically training in an academy, you know, that particular scenario comes up. I can't recall that coming up in an academy. I think that's more on the job, you know, trained experienced law enforcement. Right? I mean, I've seen people just start running away, just start running, which if you didn't know, if you're not doing anything, there's no law against exercise. You know, just because you see the police and you feel like running, you're getting in shape, you know. But again, if the police have a reason to contact you, they will contact you. If it's just a pedestrian stop or what we call a consensual encounter, we're trying to make this into a consensual encounter, get your permission to talk to you, you know, you at any point in time. No, I don't feel like talking. I'll have a good day, sir. Simple as that. Yes, sir.
If I'm read my Miranda warnings and they ask me if I understand, and I tell them no, I don't understand, what position does that put me in?
It doesn't put you in a bad position. I can't ask you the question. If you don't understand your rights, again, I've been in this long enough to know I'm not going to explain your rights. I'm not required to explain the meaning of those rights. That's better left for an attorney to do. My best bet is for me to be quiet and not ask you anything and just go on my business. If I'm going to arrest you, I'll arrest you.
My experience, though, Robert, is that they'll try to make you understand after a little while. Until you finally nod your head yes, and then they will get it out of you.
But my position has always been, how am I going to understand my rights when I don't have any?
Well, you do have rights, and you can exercise it. The technical question is that you have to affirmatively say, yes, I want my lawyer, or I want to remain silent. You have to do that, because otherwise, the law enforcement officer, Officer Burrell, is correct. I mean, he can't really do much more if he's not sure that you have specifically said yes or signed something. You know, a lot of times they have you sign a consent form.
Here's the other thing, read the consent form, please. Everybody thinks they knows their, everybody knows their rights because they've heard Miranda on the TV millions and millions of times, and that's the problem. I think it's become like certain prayers in church where you just recite it and you don't think about the meaning. Read the meaning. It says right there, you can stop the conversation at any time. How many of my clients have come to me and said, well, I started talking, but I didn't think I could quit. And you can. You just go, okay, we're done. I'm sorry. And blame your lawyer. Say, hey, I have a friend who's a lawyer, and he said never to talk to the police. Sorry, I can't talk to you anymore. Just, always blame the lawyer. Scapegoat.
Well, and sometimes I think law enforcement, and we've seen this on TV, law enforcement will say, well, okay, but if you don't talk to us now, if you lawyer up on us, then it's going to go a lot worse on you down the road. Well, I've had people that have been told, well, it'll go easier on you if you talk to us, and they still want to stick a needle in your arm because you confessed to the murder or whatever. It doesn't really go that much easier on you. And it doesn't hurt anything to wait a little while to talk to the lawyer, and then if you want to go talk to the police and be cooperative, then you can always walk down there with your lawyer and do it, and you have somebody there to kind of protect what's going on with your rights. Can I talk a little bit, Robert, about the car stop scenario?
We want to get there. That's what I was going to go to next, but I want to answer Mr. Gilbert's question.
Yes, I just happened to hear the attorney over here say, I don't know if anybody else heard it, that the police have a right to lie to you.
Yeah.
Okay, but if I lie, I'm in trouble.
That's why you should exercise your right to remain silent.
Don't say anything. Lying's one thing that you can get you in trouble, but just don't say anything.
Well, the reason why I mean, if a police officer has the right to lie to me, and then if I say something that he think I'm lying, or giving false information, now I done committed a crime. Because I lied to a police officer, but you have the right to lie to me. I don't think, in my own opinion, I don't think it's right, because if we try to get to the root of the problem, you know, let's keep it on honesty, but if he has the right to lie.
Welcome to the USA, bro.
One thing that I encourage you to do is again, look at state law out there. I know in Texas law, you know, if you lie to a police officer that's conducting an investigation, and that lie that you told makes that police officer go into a different direction in that investigation, okay? Then now what you've committed is false report to a police officer, okay? But I mean, I have people lie to me all day long. You know, what's your name? My name is Joe Blow. Okay. What's your date of birth? I don't have one. And so, understanding the information that you have to give police, you know, which is the personal information so I can identify them if I legally contact them or have the probable cause to do so. Okay. But yeah, I mean, if your lie makes me go into a different direction, which I otherwise would not have gone, now that's when the problem starts.
And I can tell you, as a recent law school graduate studying criminal law, studying criminal procedure, you know, I'm the same boat as you. Like, are you kidding me? I mean, this is the way that the courts interpret what the officers can do. I mean, what's crazy is, okay, we've all got Fourth Amendment rights, right? To, you know, we shouldn't be subject to an unreasonable search or seizure, but there's about 15 exceptions to those rights. I mean, there's situations where your rights can be violated, but then, you know, for one reason or another, it doesn't matter. I mean, and that's kind of what most people aren't aware of. For instance, your right against incrimination. You know, if you make statements, you know, that incriminating statements against yourself, you know, admit to committing a crime or something like that, you know, that just protects your statement, but any physical evidence, if they can find any physical evidence based off the statements that you're made, that's coming in anyway. And so, I mean, you know, when the car stops up, which we'll get ready to talk about here shortly, but there's so many different exceptions. The plain view exception, you know, search incident to a valid arrest exception. I mean, there's so many different exceptions of these rights because the Fourth Amendment talks about unreasonable search. And so then the question becomes, what does unreasonable consist of? And then that's when you've got all these different cases talking about that. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm doing with the boys I mentor, I'm working on a deal what to do and what not to do when pulled over by a police officer. And I just want to direct this to the police officer. Can you just give me the 5 top things that a young person or person shouldn't do when pulled over by a police officer?
One thing you shouldn't do, never conceal your hands. With my training, I mean, guns kill people, but it's the hands, you know, the gun in the hands of somebody that activates the gun. I would also say, don't get disrespectful. I mean, I understand when I pull you over that you were on your way to do something, and I'm taking some of that time away from you. Okay? I understand that completely. My job and my goal is to get in that traffic stop, get off that traffic stop, and continue with my business. You going about your business. So when you become defensive or disrespectful, now, you know what I'm saying, you're making me think, well, what's going on with this person? Why is he being this way? What is he hiding? You know what I mean? So at the end of that, I mean, I'm a person like you are. It's just simply my job. District attorney specific as well. I can tell you that as far as the stopping you for this, I'm going to give you a warning. By the way, can I search? You know, I mean, when I'm actually making my first contact with you, I'm already looking for indicators, clues. Are you not making eye contact with me? Are you sweating? It's cold outside when you pass me. Are you stuttering through your words? When I'm asking you, what I would consider everyday conversation, your information, they give you your license back, your insurance. I don't even take your insurance. I look at it. I confirm it on my computer what I saw. I don't ask for your registration. I have it on my computer. Once I give you your license back, I don't only say you're free to leave, just because you give me training, and I don't have to say that. But once I give you your license back, you're free to leave. Okay, I mean, if you're standing there, on the flip side, you need to say something else to me, or my suspicions may be right. Well, why are you still standing here? Why are you still sitting here? If you have your license, leave. Simple as that.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Frank.
Ask you a question.
Yes,
If you were, if a young lady were in sort of secluded area, and an officer said, "Would you step in my car, please?" and they feel uncomfortable, what do you suggest? Because in the past, years ago,
Well, luckily today, with the technology we have today, I can rely on my camera and my audio, and of course, I always point out, I understand this may be a little uncomfortable for you, but here's what's going on. You just step to the back, to the front of my car, right in front of my camera, right in front of my footsteps. Okay. I'm very open, in my traffic stops. I always tell you I'm kind of like the unconventional cop, because my interest is you guys knowing what your rights are. My belief is if I have something, I got it. If I don't have it, I don't have time to stretch and keep going and keep going. Someplace has to get broken into somewhere, where my interest needs to be. So, if it's a young lady, gender doesn't matter to me, race doesn't matter to me. I need to step to my car, male, female, and take a step right in front of my push bar, have a seat, everything that I'm saying is being recorded, both audio-wise and also video.
But ma'am, I think what you're talking about is you're kind of afraid, what if this isn't a real office?
right?
Late at night, and I don't know how to react to that in all honesty. My daughter called me one time and said, hey,
And here's what people have done, to me before, even on traffic stops. Well, I need to call 911 and make sure you are who you say you are. Not a problem. I say my radio number. She doesn't call you to verify who I am. Just give me a heads up. They should call.
Yeah, he understood what I was asking.
Okay. You said that you can request a supervisor, and upon that request, that officer is required to request a supervisor. Okay? I'm a person who, like I said before, like you are. I've been stopped and I've had to entertain certain other ideologies, such as, what the hell you're talking about? Yeah, let me have your supervisor. You don't want? Okay. Not a problem. Is this being recorded? Okay. I just want to make sure because I get with my attorney and we'll handle up and stuff like that. So it doesn't, just because I'm a cop, when I have a uniform on, I'm still a man at the end of the day. And I have the same rights, I have the same concerns that you have.
And we want to talk about that more in depth. That's a great segue to the video recording police and contacting someone when you're stopped. I mean, obviously we want officers to have their body cams and all that kind of stuff. There was a mention of the cams that are in the vehicles when you get stopped. But the question comes up, what about, am I free to record officers? Should I call somebody when I get stopped? What to do with that? I'm going to let Mr. Garcia talk about that.
I don't know anything about that. I'm sorry, that is one area that I don't know anything about, so I'm not going to be able to talk about that.
I don't either. I think Officer Burrell probably would know better how to react to that.
So have we all seen on TV or videos where somebody's recording the police and they have all this commentary and then you see the actions of the police? Everything. I mean, how do you guys feel about that? Now I'm gonna actually get a warrant to seize your phone because I need the video. Saying on. Alright, so by all means, you can record the police. Please do, for your safety as well as for mine. Right? So it's okay to record. Just make sure you stay far enough.
What's the difference about you and all the other cops?
Me and all the other cops? That's actually a very good question. Again, I've been doing this for a while, and just the fact of knowing that when I'm not in uniform, I do the same thing you guys do. My benefit is that when when I put on my uniform, I see the law enforcement aspect of it. When I take off my uniform, I'm subject to the same thing. You know, literally, and I have been stopped with what I feel maybe because I was black. But then when I start talking to the officer and I start letting them look, can you tell me what I did? After, you know, if you don't tell me, which is your right to know, by the way, what you're getting on. If you don't tell me that after I've applied with you, I've given you my license, my insurance, you know I don't have any warrants, okay? So now I need to start finding out what's going on, why.
That, but if there's an officer that's continuously causing issues or causing problems, then, I mean, A, if you don't complain, nobody knows about it, you're just complaining to us, and so, I mean, I don't have the authority to be able to do anything. Yeah, this is exactly where we're going next with law enforcement excessive force cases and difficulties.
Complaint. I did a complaint. I had a really nice officer that was working with us that took the complaint. Next thing I know, he's calling me saying I'm being transferred regarding to talk to such and such, and that person, you know, never really contacted me.
I think that's really bad. I would recommend too going to a different agency, like maybe call the Kansas Bureau of Investigation. KBI investigates a lot of those, or call the local FBI office and let them know.